Kính thưa quý vị, đến với chương trình ngày hôm nay thì chúng tôi mang đến một chương trình rất là đặc biệt bởi vì đây là sự hợp tác giữa đài truyền hình VNA TV từ California cùng với Vina Media tại Boston, Massachusetts, cùng hợp tác với Project Hope for Southeast Asia. Và vị khách mời đầu tiên mà chúng tôi muốn mời đến trường quay công tác ngày hôm nay đó là Anne Lee. Cô ấy là Director of Project Hope for Southeast Asia. Hello everyone, welcome back to our show. And today's show is a very special collaboration between the VNA TV from California and Vina Media Production in Boston, Massachusetts, together with Project Hope for Southeast Asia. And the first special guest we want to introduce to you today is Anne Lee. She's the Director of Project Hope for Southeast Asia. Hello, Anne.
Hello, hi everyone. I am the Director of PR for Project Hope of Southeast Asia, and I'm very happy to be here with everyone today. To start off today's interview, I wanted to ask Anissa, start off by discussing a little bit about how you've served the people of Boston already as City Councilor. What do you believe has been your most effective project that has been a benefit to everyone in your term serving as councilor so far?
Anu, thank you very much for welcoming me this morning. My name is Anissa Saiba-George, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to serve as a city councilor at large, representing the entire city for almost 6 years now, and really excited about this run for mayor and the election next week, and hope to find certainly some success in this election and continue my work. My, I think, most impactful accomplishments as an at-large city councilor has certainly been around my work to end family homelessness here in the city of Boston. We have about 5,000 students in the Boston Public Schools who are experiencing homelessness, and those children, along with their parents and their families, are really impacted by the rising cost of housing here in the city of Boston, and the really important work that we need to continue focusing on as it relates to supporting them. There are social and emotional help, as well as the challenges of being successful in school during a crisis, during chaotic moments, during sort of times of great just disruption. So I'm really proud of that work. I'm also proud of being the leading voice around improving access to mental health as it relates to my work as a city councilor and the work supporting our city's residents. We've got a tremendous amount of need when it comes to mental health here in the city of Boston and certainly beyond, and both just generally, but also as it relates to this pandemic and the crisis of families being isolated, kids not being in classrooms, our senior citizens, our older Bostonians not having access to appropriate supports. And for me, in the end, it's about being a teacher, being an educator, being focused on the work of supporting our students and our educators, as well as just being present in our neighborhoods. I'm very proud of my the opportunity I have to engage with our city's residents and to be present in all of our neighborhoods across our city.
That's wonderful. Thank you for that. And you mentioned a little bit about COVID and a lot of the burdens that have been caused by it. And I kind of wanted to delve more as well into that topic. And we know that a lot of people are always looking for a leader they can look up to alleviate socioeconomic burdens that a lot of families and communities face nowadays. And on top of that, of course, nowadays, we're all aware that COVID has created such a massive economic crisis. Could you explain a little bit about what you've done so far to keep the economy stable in Boston during this time, maybe a little bit before and after the pandemic? More specifically, what are some of your plans that you're thinking about to help the unemployed obtain new jobs still during this time? How are you assisting local minority businesses to still maintain their companies so that they can still retain their employees during this time?
No, thank you, Anne, for that question, because it's, that's a really sort of comprehensive effort that is needed when we think about supporting our local economy. And often here in Boston, we're talking about downtown, we're talking about big businesses, we're talking about big industry, which is certainly important as it's a critical component of the economic engine that Boston is. But we often forget, unfortunately, about our small businesses, about what I refer to as our mini economies that exist within each one of our neighborhoods across the city of Boston. And we certainly need to remain focused on supporting our small, locally owned businesses, and especially those that are owned by people of color and women and veterans. We think about the disproportionate impact that this crisis has had on them. I'm a small business owner and have felt firsthand the impact of this pandemic. We were closed for many, many months as a business, and that can be devastating to our locally owned businesses, especially those that are renters, that are tenants, that don't own their property. And that has always been a disadvantage for our small businesses, and something that's been important to me as we look on the housing side to help our city's residents find opportunities for ownership. For our small businesses, we should be doing the same. You know, over the course of this pandemic, especially early in COVID last year, I own a yarn shop, a sewing shop, and so the early months of closure, I spent time sewing washable, reusable masks, and that was something I could do. And when you're a maker, when you're a crafter, you do. And through that time, it also created different opportunities for me to have different conversations with, you know, our community members who are in the nonprofit sector and the challenges that they were facing. Our other small business owners really trying to utilize their situation and their opportunity to do more and work with them on reopening. So it's this sort of spectrum of activity that small businesses wanted to engage in. And during the early discussions around reopening, I had advocated with the Walsh administration, the former mayor, to make sure that the voice of the small business owner was at the table in those discussions. And that's certainly around restaurant owners and bar owners, retailers, and then those that owned, you know, commercial enterprise, but maybe like office space and things like that, because their voices, their experiences are really important in any of the discussions around reopening our economy, reopening business, and re-engaging with the public. The other really important piece to thinking about economic stability and future growth is around the vaccine rollout and continued testing. It is so important that we are making sure that our city's residents have access to the vaccine and that there's an opportunity for continued testing. You know, as we've seen a small spike in COVID breakthrough. So through Delta and the Delta variant and other variants, it's so important that we are continuing with access to testing and vaccine. I have, you know, through my capacity as a city councilor, made sure that our community health centers and other community-based organizations were able to participate in the vaccine rollout, and that we are reopening our schools safely. When all of these components, the local economy and supporting small businesses, making sure that community-based organizations have access and opportunity to participate, and that our schools are able to reopen and reopen safely, when we do all of these things, we create more opportunity for economic stabilization and economic growth.
Great, thank you so much for that wonderful answer. Now to kind of pivot in a little different direction, we also wanted to get an idea of what your expectations are for keeping the diverse and ethnic communities within the city of Boston strong and viable. Of course, the city is so diverse. There's so many different communities, and we know that your parents have also come to the U.S. as immigrants, and you're a first-generation American. So how will you, as a possible representative of the city of Boston, encourage this community that embraces the differences and reflects a city that could be described as, a lot of people call it, a melting pot?
You know, Boston truly is a melting pot. When we think about the diversity of the city, both culturally, ethnically, racially, it's so important that we are continuing to celebrate that and encourage that, because too often, if communities don't find a home and a cultural and a community connection to the city, they will leave. And Boston is a city of immigrants. Boston is a city of diversity. Boston is a city of opportunity. And when we make sure that each one of our communities has access to that opportunity, feels seen and heard through their experiences, and certainly in government, that's how we have that truly a city that truly celebrates its diversity. And, you know, I can lead with my experiences. As you mentioned, both my parents are immigrants to this country, two very different immigration stories. My mother is Polish, came as a young child. She was born in a displaced persons camp after World War II. My dad is an Arab, a Muslim from North Africa. He came to this country in his early 20s. And so growing up with a Polish Catholic mother and an Arab Muslim father certainly created its own dynamic and diversity in my household. But that's what Boston is all about, and that's what we need to continue to celebrate and uplift. And for me, as mayor of this city, one of my first steps is to build a cabinet and a leadership team that reflects the diversity of our city in both racial and ethnic and cultural and linguistic experiences and attributes. It's so important that leadership looks like the city in which it leads. And for me, that's really important, and it's a priority, and it's necessary in those early days to build a cabinet. So that cabinet and that leadership team should look like the city. And we think about access to government. Our city's residents, no matter where they come from, whether they're new Bostonians or they've been here for generations, whether they speak English as their first language or it's not, they need to feel a connection to those that lead and govern the city. So for me, it's about making government and the city easy to interface and interact with. And when we speak the languages, when we reflect the cultures and the races and the ethnicities that are present in this city, we connect easier to each other. And so that's really important to me. And it's about the work and it's about representation. And we use that saying often, representation matters. And it truly does, especially at the local level.
Yes, that is so very true. Thank you. You are not only our political leader, but a very good and close friend of our community. So before the primary election, are there any other messages that you would like to send to the Vietnamese American community in Boston?
No, I appreciate that question, Anne. And when I think about the Vietnamese American community in Boston, it's here in Dorchester, where I call home, and grateful to have both the presence and the immersion of the Vietnamese community here in our city and in my neighborhood in particular. And as the daughter of immigrants, as I mentioned, that diversity, that richness, that culture, that presence is so important to our city as a whole. I'm a former high school teacher here in Boston as an educator. I got to see that diversity up close. I'm the mother of 4 teenage boys who have friends that represent the diversity of this city and how important those relationships are to them personally, but to our city moving forward. And I'm a small business owner, as I mentioned. When I think about the uniqueness of our small business community, when we support those businesses that are locally owned, especially the diversity of not just the types of businesses, but who owns those businesses, how special that makes each one of our neighborhoods. And representing the entire city today as an at-large city councilor, when I see that, when I experience that, when I get to live that, it makes me so proud. And I'm so excited to lead this city today as an at-large city councilor. And I believe I'm the right leader to be mayor of this city, to be the chief executive, I suppose, of the city of Boston. And for me to continue my the work that I've been able to do as an at-large city councilor, both the legislative work, but also being engaged with our city's residents, being present in all of our neighborhoods, building relationship with our city's residents, being able to connect with our city's residents and let them drive the agenda. For me, although I'm going to lead the city, I want to do it in partnership with our city's residents. So I hope that everyone engaged in this conversation, your audience, has made a plan to vote. Election day is Tuesday, September 14th. Polls will be open from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. But these next few days, we have early voting. So if there's an opportunity to go out and vote, I hope you'll consider me for your vote for mayor. I'm number 1 on the ballot. So my name is long, Anissa Resaibi George, and sometimes it's difficult to pronounce, but I'm number 1 on the ballot. So we've made it easy. And I'm grateful for the opportunity to meet with all of you, to discuss my platform, my work. And I hope to have the opportunity to do it between September 15th and November 2nd, the second leg of this campaign cycle.
Great. Thank you so much, Anissa, for your time today and for sharing your platform with all of us. We really appreciate the time you took today. And again, voting is early right now, so make sure that you go out and vote before September 14th, also coincidentally my birthday. So
oh, happy birthday early. It's also my dad's birthday. That's exciting.
Yep, very exciting. So I will give the floor back to you, and thank you so much again, Anissa, for your time.
Thank you Anne, thank you Anissa. Kính thưa quý vị, vừa rồi thì quý vị cùng với cô Anne gặp gỡ bà Anissa Asadi George. Bà là một trong những ứng cử viên cho chức vụ thị trưởng thành phố Boston. Và quý vị nhớ là ngày bầu cử của chúng ta là vào thứ Ba, ngày 14 tháng 9. Và vị trí của cái số bầu cử của bà Anissa đó là số 1. Để dễ cho quý vị nhớ hơn nếu ngày hôm đó quý vị đi bầu. Bởi vì vừa rồi bà có chia sẻ những điều mà bà đã đang và sẽ làm cho thành phố Boston với cương vị là thị trưởng của thành phố. Cho nên nếu quý vị đi bầu vào ngày thứ Ba, ngày 14 tháng 9, hoặc là chúng ta có bầu cử sớm early voting vài ngày trước đó, thì quý vị nhớ là nếu quý vị muốn bầu cho bà Anissa thì số của bà là số 1 trong cái ballot của mình. Well, thank you so much, Anne. Thank you, Anissa, for coming to our show today. It's a great pleasure to hear all of your contribution to the city of Boston. We thank you and appreciate so much of that. Và kính thưa quý vị, để tiếp tục chương trình giới thiệu đến quý vị những ứng cử viên cho chức vụ thị trưởng thành phố Boston, thì ngày hôm nay chúng tôi rất là vui mừng được mời quý vị cùng với chúng tôi gặp gỡ bà Michelle Wu. Bà hiện tại là nghị viên thành phố Boston, nhưng mà bà cũng là một trong những ứng cử viên cho chức vụ thị trưởng thành phố Boston. Hi everyone, thank you so much for joining us. And to continue with our introduction to all the candidates for the Mayor of Boston election this year, today is my honor to introduce to you Ms. Michelle Wu. She's the City Councilor at Large of Boston since 2014, and she's also one of the 5 candidates running for the Mayor of Boston position this year. So please welcome Ms. Michelle Wu and Ann Lee.
Hi everyone, my name is Ann Lee. I am the Public Relations Director of Project Hope for Southeast Asia, and it's my pleasure to introduce Michelle Wu. Good afternoon. How are you? Thank you for taking the time to speak with us. Before this interview begins, could you please greet our audience and introduce yourself a little bit to VNA TV, as well as Massachusetts viewers and the voters to the primary election?
Sure. Thank you so much for having me. It's really an honor to be with you. We are now 5 days away from the preliminary election in Boston, so it's a great time to be making sure that we can get connected to as many residents as possible. My name is Michelle Wu. I've served on the City Council, as I said, for 8 years now, and I worked in City Hall even before that for Mayor Menino as well. I'm the daughter of immigrants. My parents immigrated from Taiwan to the United States. They themselves were children of immigrants, as both of my parents, my grandparents on both sides, fled mainland China in the midst of civil war, fighting communism. And so I know what it means to be from an immigrant family and to experience the types of challenges that we see with language barriers and cultural barriers. I'm a mom of 2 boys who are 4 and 6 years old, and I live with my mom in Roslindale because we are in a multi-generational household. My mom has struggled with some mental health challenges, and I ended up raising my 2 sisters in that experience. And so I've been involved in the city for a long time, have been bringing experience to city government to try to close gaps and serve our immigrant communities and all of our communities across the city.
Great, thank you so much for your introduction. You mentioned that you have immigrant parents, and kind of to start off this interview, we were wondering, as the first Asian woman candidate running for Boston mayor, could you kind of explain what you believe are the differences between your position with that of the current acting mayor of Boston, Ms. Janey, and how that would differ in your views of your visions of wanting to improve the city of Boston? Kind of alongside that, what do you believe you offer to the citizens and residents of Boston that differ a little bit from the other candidates as well running for mayor?
I bring a decade of experience in City Hall, having served the entire city of Boston as a city councilor, knowing each one of our neighborhoods. But I also bring a track record of having delivered many of the big changes that we've seen in Boston, from legislation that guaranteed language access to supporting working parents as they were growing their families, to fighting for our schools to have supports and for education and school lunches to be healthy and local. I'm living many of these challenges, and from housing affordability to jobs and transportation and safety and education, I want to make sure that Boston includes everyone in that progress. And so I'm putting forward a track record plus a plan for the future, because this race really is about the future of our city.
Thank you. Thank you. Going on the topic of what you just mentioned of, being able to empathize with similar burdens most families are going through right now. We really are kind of living in a time of an economic crisis. Thus, what are your plans to improve the economic situation in Boston? Moreover, how do you envision, if you were elected as mayor of Boston, to assist the diverse ethnic communities of living and working within the city of Boston?
Our economy has changed with COVID-19. We have seen our small businesses, especially under great stress. And as tourism has slowed down because air travel and travel has not been as safe, or as more workers are now using technology instead of going in person, we've seen that impact our businesses, especially in the neighborhood business districts. I know Chinatown, Little Saigon, so many of our local small businesses as a community, we're really impacted, and we have seen even more a situation with rising anti-Asian hate and racism as well. And so my approach is to ensure that our small businesses have a connection to city government and have access to the resources that are available. I am a former small business owner myself, so I know how hard our entrepreneurs work and what a big difference it makes for our communities when our small businesses thrive. We have to be creative about supporting these business districts in our neighborhoods, connecting people to transportation that is reliable, and making sure that as we are filling up the spaces that might have been vacant now because of the pandemic, that we're doing so with our locally owned businesses having that opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you for mentioning topics such as anti-Asian hate, and we wanted to also kind of sort of discuss that we know that the city of Boston is really seen as a melting pot. We have lots of different communities that really embrace a lot of differences, and we were wondering, as a possible representative of the city of Boston, what are your expectations for really keeping the ethnic communities in Boston strong and viable? Are there any action plans that you have in place and able to encourage people to really embrace differences within the city?
First, we have to lift up and celebrate. Oops, sorry, my video. First, we have to lift up and celebrate the unique neighborhoods and the culture that is there within our city already. I was really proud to partner with community leaders from all across the Vietnamese American community in pushing for the Little Saigon district and the official designation. We know that this will make a difference when it comes to the awareness all across Massachusetts and beyond of the very special businesses and experiences and opportunities within Little Saigon. And this will also help stabilize families. We know people are experiencing the pressure of housing prices and schools, and and we must recognize the contributions of communities who have built up our neighborhoods. The bottom line is that Boston is a city where we can be a little bit siloed, separated from each other. And through transportation that is reliable, through city government that connects all of us, we can make sure that everybody can access the resources. Last summer, I walked through Little Saigon and visited with all the business owners who were there. speaking about what the experience had been during the pandemic and whether the city could help more. And many businesses had not known about programs that were available for grants or funding or opportunities to get their employees vaccinated quickly. And so by going door to door and making that direct connection, we were able to provide more resources that already existed somewhere, but still seemed so far away in that moment until you meet people where they're at.
Thank you so much. Last but not least, before the primary election, are there any other particular messages that you would like to convey to the Vietnamese American community and its voters?
I'm so humbled to have represented all of Boston, and including this very special community for 8 years now, and to see so much organizing and energy and intergenerational organizing happening. We have all been through so much in the pandemic. The gaps have gotten bigger, the stresses on schools, on businesses, on people trying to get to work have gotten even stronger. And so my goal is to speak for all of our communities, not by going into City Hall by myself, but to ensure that our city government is a platform for all the voices from our community. And so as a mom with kids in our public schools, living in a multi-generational household, I want to ensure that all of our families have what we need to be able to not just stay, but be healthy and thriving as we're recovering from this pandemic.
Great. Thank you so much, Michelle, for sharing your platform with us today, taking the time to speak with all of us. Again, I'm Anne. I am the Public Relations Director of Project Hope for Southeast Asia. Please vote before September 14th. The election ends September 14th, so make sure to go out and vote. Right now it's early polls, so get there as soon as you can. And Michelle, also, we were wondering what number on the ballot you were on, so just to kind of tell everyone.
Thank you. I very respectfully ask for everyone's vote. I'm number 5 on the ballot.
All right, great. Thank you so much, Michelle, and I'll give the floor back to Nu.
Well, thank you, Anne, and my special thank you to Michelle, especially for your involvement with the Little Saigon Cultural District from the very start. Thank you for taking the time from your very busy schedule to be here with us today. Kính thưa quý vị, vừa rồi thì chúng ta vừa gặp gỡ bà Michelle Wu, là một trong những ứng cử viên cho chức vụ thị trưởng thành phố Boston, và mã số của bà trên cái lá phiếu bầu cử là số 5, cho nên nếu quý vị muốn bầu cho bà Michelle Wu, bởi vì bà đã có rất là nhiều đóng góp cho cái dự án Little Saigon của chúng ta, thì nếu như mà quý vị muốn bầu cử cho bà thì mã số của bà trên lá phiếu là mã số 5, và ngày bầu cử của chúng ta là ngày thứ 3, ngày 14 tháng 9. Quý vị nhớ đi bầu để mang cái tiếng nói của người Việt, cộng đồng người Việt của chúng ta được nghe thấy những cái điều mà chúng ta cần ở trong xã hội, thì những cái điều đó sẽ được nghe. Xin cảm ơn quý vị đã quan tâm theo dõi chương trình của chúng ta ngày hôm nay. Sự hợp tác giữa Vinamedia từ Boston, Massachusetts, VNA từ California và Project Hope for Southeast Asia. Thank you everyone for following our show today. Collaboration between Vinamedia and Boston, VNA TV from California, and Project Hope for Southeast Asia. And we'll see you again next time.